So yes, guys, I will be sharing my screen shortly before I am assign the host permissions. So the agenda for today would be pretty simple. We'll be going a walkthrough of FortiGate's packet flow in short, and we'll also be looking at the lab topology that we'll be working with. Once that's done, we will dive into a small quick lab on how do we proceed accessing a firewall, a new firewall, how do we configure an interface and give access to a user through internet, and also to configure administrative users and assign them privileges to access and not access, so and so. Okay, let me see if I am, yeah, I can share my screen now. All right, so let me know if you guys could see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yes, we can see your screen. It looks good.
All right, thank you. So yes, as I was talking about the agenda for today, we'll be walking you through the packet flow of FortiGate and the deployment modes, and how we shall deploy FortiGate and what on what modes we shall probably deploy them. And we'll jump into accessing the GUI interface of the firewall and configuring the administrator and role for a user, and backing up and restoring the config. And then a short lab, if time permits, we'll be configuring interfaces and sitting on the inside of the firewall to access.
Sir, your voice is not audible sometimes. It is
not audible now. I mean, you're going far away.
Okay. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's clear.
It's clear. Sometimes it is happening.
Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay, I hope I'm clear now.
Yes, clear.
Okay, yeah. So along with the agenda, I have a diagram that I've taken from the FortiGate website, which we will be discussing or going through to know how the packet flow works on the firewall, how the firewall processes the packet, right? So I'll have this on one side, and I'll be opening up a notepad. Write something for you wherever necessary. So with respect to packet flow, if you have already worked with any firewall for that matter, you might know that we have somewhere about 2 types of firewall, where specific set of firewalls inspect only layer 4, for example, an NSE. And the next generation firewall nowadays are going to inspect packets up to layer 7 in the application level. So before I get started, may I ask you guys to give a short introduction of yourself and let me know your years of experience and if you have any prior firewall experience, so that I can get started with what a stateful firewall is, if the majority of audience are new to a next generation firewall or a stateful firewall. So I can spend about 5 minutes talking about this and then getting into FortiGate or any the use case of next generation firewall later on. So I'll leave the stage for you. You can take about 5 minutes and probably explain a 30-second demo of yourself, intro of yourself, and I should get started from there.
Okay, I'll start. Can everybody hear me?
Yep. Please go ahead.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jalen Murray. I am currently a senior help desk technician right now. My experience is 6 years working with networking systems. It's mainly Cisco routers and switches. I have a little experience with firewalls with the PALOALTO, the GUI-based dashboard interface that we use. Prior experience in the military. And then currently I'm pursuing my bachelor's degree in network engineering security. And so my firewall knowledge is very beginner to intermediate level. I understand the basics of how firewalls work. I understand what the next generation firewall is, stateful and stateless. But as far as in depth, I'm working to get to that security where I'm looking at my CCSP right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, thank you. Yes, anyone else?
Can I go next?
Yes, please.
My name is Rizwan. I have 2 years of experience in networking. That was like 6 years ago, actually, from 2015 to 2017. After that, I took a break and I went on to start some business. And right now, I am looking to restart my career again. While I was working, I had exposure to firewalls. I have worked on ASA and all. In between, somewhere around 2018, I have through online tutorials, I have watched ASA, this IPS videos and all, but I don't have that in-depth knowledge. But I do have some fairly good basic understanding of how firewalls work, and routing and switching knowledge also I have. That's right now I'm actually out of touch with the industry.
Okay. Thank you, Rizwan. Yes, anyone else? I'll be
Yeah.
more people to pitch in, and then we can get started.
Hi, can I start now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, my name is Muhammad Rafi. Currently working in Saudi Arabia with Tattoo. I have around 8 years of experience, and actually I'm new to firewalls. Recently I got access, but when I was in India for vacation, they blocked my access. So prior to that, when they have given me access, so I was applying the policies, like some basic policies they are giving me, and I have a bit some quite of experience in Palo Alto and as a ASA as well. And I
Okay.
was working with network devices like VPN boxes, Juniper boxes we have,
Okay.
and Cisco switches and all that stuff. And I am
All right.
very much familiar with the firewall topology, how they work and all.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Rafi. Yes, one more, and we shall begin.
Hi guys. Yeah, my name is Nilesh, and I have around 9 years of experience in routing and switching. And for past 1 year, I have been working on firewall, like on FortiGate mainly. So I'm familiar with firewalls, but not so much that I'm here to learn firewall so that I can get myself certified and get my concepts cleared completely. Thank you.
All right. I saw one more person trying to talk, so I'll let him complete and we shall get started.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Bhumi. I'm from Gujarat. I'm working with last 2 years in engineering.
I can hardly hear you. Sorry, I couldn't hear your name in the first place. So could you be a little louder so that everyone could hear you?
Hi, my name is Govind. Now is
it is clear now. Yeah, it is clear now. Yes.
Okay. So I'm from Gujarat. From last 2 years, I'm network security and profile. Currently, as a firewall, FortiGate, suppose Sonical. We configure in depth. I'm working with banking environment, industrial.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Govind. Okay. So let's get started. It's been 15 minutes since we have joined in. So let me first start with I saw out of 5, I saw about 3 people new to firewall. So I believe getting started with what a stateful firewall is and what it does, spending 5 minutes on that is the ideal thing to do. So let me start with what a firewall would do first. So when you say firewall, and when you compare a firewall with a router, so this assume this is a router and this as a firewall. So as I said, the firewall in earlier stages would inspect up to layer 4 of the OSI model, which is TCP, and the next generation firewall nowadays are inspecting up to layer 7, so which is the application level. So it's intelligent enough to identify what exact application that a user is trying to access. So for example, if he is accessing Facebook, it may be through an application on your PC, or it may be through a web browser. Doesn't matter, but through some signatures that the firewall has in its public cloud of their own sandbox or the cloud, it is able to identify, it will be able to identify what exact application the user is using and inspect that application if it is not a well-known application, and allow or deny based on the decision making that it has on its cloud. All right. So what in general a firewall is supposed to do, or routing, what more than a router firewall is doing? So with respect to router, what maximum we can do for restricting or allowing a user is to do an access list, IPACL, right? But on the firewall, as I said, layer 4 firewall will be able to inspect statefully. So what do you mean by stateful firewall? Stateful applies to both layer 4 and layer 7 firewall. So I'll explain you what a stateful firewall would do. Let's say you have a firewall here and you have a user coming in trying to access something on the internet. All right. So in this case, he is trying to reach some URL or a server in the internet that sits here. Let me draw it this way. So this server is accessed by this user, and he opens the TCP session. This TCP session, once the handshake is complete, or once the user initiates the traffic, the written traffic from the server to the user will be by default allowed, and that's not the case with the router. So the router, if we are trying to do some restrictions on the router, on the other side, we should have some ACL to allow this specific traffic, the other side of the flow, so that the traffic is allowed. But in case of stateful firewall, the state of the packet is identified, and if the traffic is coming from the same session or the same state of the packet, same TCP state, the traffic will be allowed by the firewall irrespective of the security policy, whether it's available or not. So the policy that it actually would require is from the source that actually initiates the traffic. The destination who responds back doesn't need to have a policy on the firewall for it to breach in the firewall and reach the user. So that's what a stateful firewall is. So what are you taking away from this? You are initiating a session, may be a server from internet or may be a user from the inside of the firewall, instead of the corporate office, where whoever initiates the connection and initiates the connection to a specific destination, only that flow is necessary to be allowed on the firewall. The reverse flow of the same traffic is not necessary to be allowed on the firewall explicitly. That is taken care by the stateful feature of the firewall. All right. Okay. So with that being said, we can jump into FortiGate's packet flow. So in here, we have about 4 stages. So the first stage, so people who have worked with PALOALTO, or who knows how a PALOALTO packet flow would look like, this is going to be pretty similar on how a PALOALTO would interpret a traffic to that of the FortiGate. Considering,
Hello.
yes.
Hello. Sorry,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. Sorry, your voice is breaking down. Not really properly.
Is it the same for everyone?
Yes, yes.
Yes, it is same.
Yes, at times it is breaking.
Okay. So was it throughout the session I started talking, or is it just now?
I mean, you're going a bit fast. I mean,
Okay.
I'm not sure whether it is a network issue that making it a bit fast.
Okay, I'll store on my pace, but was this happening, interruption happening from the beginning when I started talking, or is it just before you guys stopped me?
It is even now. When you're speaking, it is breaking.
Okay.
Actually, there are some drops in between, slight drops.
Hey, give me a second. Is it any better now?
Yeah, it's better now. Due to this, I did not
How
catch
is-
what is stateful and stateless.
Okay, do you guys want me to repeat that?
Yeah, it will be very much helpful. Really appreciate it.
Okay, sure, we'll do that. So, let me again draw the same diagram of a firewall, considering this as a firewall, and a user sitting behind it. And we have an internet cloud here. So what a stateful device is that when a user opens a TCP session to a server in the internet, so it is expected that the server should be responding with some data that the user is requesting, isn't it? So
Still dropping.
so it's dropping again.
Yes, it is
Yes,
dropping.
sometimes it is happening. Sometimes the flow is going and all of a sudden it is getting disconnected. We are not able to hear you properly.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. Just give me 1 second. I'll just try to change my internet. I'll get back in a minute.
So I'm not sure if issue is happening with everyone, but I hear you properly.
Same, I can hear properly as well.
If majority are complaining, so I just switched my place to some elsewhere and I've changed the connection now. So I believe it should be okay. So
Yeah,
how is
right
it?
now sounds better.
Voice is perfectly audible.
Hello.
Yeah, right now is it okay?
It's okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
perfectly.
All right. Okay, let's get started quickly. Okay, so I was talking about a user accessing some server in the internet. So the user will expect server to get some sort of response from the server, and server's response is considered to be server to client in a TCP session, and this is client to server, isn't it? So in this scenario, the forward traffic from the client to server will have a policy. Should have a policy for the firewall to allow the traffic from the user to the server. So when the session is when the device is stateful, the reverse traffic from the server to client, which is supposed to be the same session that this client has initiated just before a few seconds, doesn't have to be allowed explicitly as a part of a policy. So because the firewall has a session count of what session has gone outside, and it will have a timer running behind it, where for TCP, this is a universal timer that runs on any device that supports TCP, UDP, or ICMP, or whatever protocol you might think of. So for TCP, it is 1 hour. Idle timeout is 1 hour, and for UDP, it is 1 minute. And for ICMP, it is 1 second. So that is why when you try to ping something through the firewall, and when you go on to see some logs on the firewall, it will disappear before you even go and check it out, because the moment the ping runs and completes on your machine where you've initiated the ping, the logs would appear on the firewall and disappear because the timeout is 1 second here. All right. So the takeaway.
I have a question. I have a question.
Yes.
Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah.
So are you able to adjust those timers or no? They're automatically set.
It is not possible. It's a
Okay.
standard timer for that specific protocol. So you know that the TCP is a standard global protocol for whatever
Right.
vendor you think of. If you go ahead to connect an FTP session, it's a TCP. Its timeout value is 1 hour. So it's not the total timer of a specific session, it's the idle timeout of a specific session. So it's expecting session to be idle for 1 hour without any
Okay.
data, and it terminates the session. So if the session is not idle and it passes the traffic within that 1 hour of timeout, it again renews the timer and then starts from 0.
Okay, every time it's reset, it's an automatic thing that is set in the firewalls.
That's correct.
All right, thank you. You can continue, sir.
Yeah, so that's about the stateful firewall. It's going to have a track of the session count, and if the same session return traffic comes in from the server to the client, the traffic is not going to be blocked, even though there is no policy available on the firewall for the return traffic. Simply because it's of the same session, all right? So that's not the case with case where if the server is initiating a different session to the client and the client responds. In this case, the server to the client is C to S, and the client to server is S to C, server to client. So this is actually a server, but it is requesting something to the client and initiating a connection. So this is a forward flow, and this becomes a reverse flow, and there should be a policy from this end to this end on the firewall to be allowed for it to work. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
How does the firewall track? Is it just with the source IP, source port, destination IP, and destination port, or the thing is, I'll tell you a scenario.
Yes.
For example, in the connection table, let's say a TCP connection is open, and if someone from the outside is sending a bogus reply packet to the source IP and source port, will that packet get through?
If
I
it is
mean, how does the firewall track? Is it just through the source IP, the source?
Initially, yes, but it also has some advanced features. Where are you talking? If you're talking about the server from internet trying to access the internal resource through some TCP session or any TCP session, where it continuously tries sending the packet and overload the device or the infrastructure. That's what you're trying to say. Will it allow that? For specific reason, we have something called DOS protection profile. And over here, we'll set up some threshold where if it's an ICMP that the outsider is sending, if the threshold is set to be 100 ICMP packets per second, and if it breaches this, it's going to discard the packet. If it is below the threshold, it's going to allow. Similarly for TCP, you have similarly for UDP as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if there is a TCP SYN flood, SYN is the first packet of TCP, and if there is a SYN flood being sent from outside to its inside, and if the number of SYN packets is not more than 100, let's say, per second, it's going to allow. That's below the threshold. If it's going to be more than 100 per second, it's going to hit DOS protection profile if it is applied onto the security policy or an interface, wherever it's supposed to apply. And if it's going to breach the threshold, it's going to get denied, or it's going to do what this profile is saying. If the profile is saying that just alert and allow the traffic, it's going to do that. About how we set it up when the threshold is breached. All right.
All right. Yeah.
This example we discussed just for a stateful inspection. Why the reverse traffic flow doesn't need a policy. It's because it belongs to the same session and the session is tracked by the firewall. All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So with that being said,
hello. Excuse
yeah.
me. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is an introductory class. We should have less questions. We can just go ahead and do most of those training, maybe like 10-20 minutes. Anybody that have a question could write it down. Then if you want to go for the retraining, we can have all the questions. I'm just saying from my own side, we had too much questions.
The actual agenda as well from my side, but yeah, let's do that if everyone agrees. So as complete the agenda before the time complete. So yeah, we'll finish off the whole agenda, and I'll let the meeting open for 20 minutes or 15 minutes or so, and you can shoot your questions over that at that time, right? Okay. So now we know what stateful inspection is. We'll dive into how firewall inspects the traffic when it gets in through side interface, ingress interface. Ingress interface is an interface through which the firewall or through which the traffic enters the device. Egress is the interface through which it exits the device. Okay, so you have about 5 interfaces. So for a specific flow, there could be one ingress and one egress interface, not more than that, because a traffic specifically can enter an interface and leave an interface. Couldn't do so with multiple interfaces. There could be only 2 interfaces for a specific traffic, one ingress and one egress, right? So when the traffic enters, what happens said through ingress stage, and when it exits, it is egress stage. So whatever happens in between is this, where it forms a session, it identifies the SSL traffic, decrypts it does IPS inspection, application control, flow-based inspection, proxy-based inspection. So we'll see all of that. First, we'll talk about how an ingress stage would work. Ingress stage, we have something called identifying the ingress interface. That's done by default because that's where the actual traffic is coming into, and then the DOS protection profile is kicked in, where it checks the DOS protection profile to know if the threshold for the DOS protection profile is getting breached for this interface, or it's within the threshold so as to allow or deny the traffic. IP integrity. Again, it checks the IP header of IP packet to know if it has some errors. If it's so, it's going to deny that. If it passes through, which most of the cases it does, it will be allowed to move further. Next stage where if the traffic is IPsec, let's say if the incoming traffic is coming in through this interface, and if let's say it's an IPsec traffic, it's going to be encrypted, isn't it? So the IPsec header will be encapsulated onto the actual IP header, and the traffic will be encapsulated. So we are supposed to decapsulate the traffic and check for the actual IP header, and then do the processing again. So this applies only if the traffic is IPsec. If it is not an IPsec, it ignores this stage. All right. And then it checks the destination NAT and routing. So we'll get in detail of this Let me go to my notepad. Okay. We have an ingress stage where first I said the traffic gets into an interface of the firewall where it identifies the interface to be one by one, let's say. And it also identifies whether the interface has its own protection profile, DOS protection profile. If the DOS protection profile has a specific threshold being set, if it's an ICMP traffic, 100 sessions per second is allowed. That's the threshold. And if it's a TCP, 200. And if it's a UDP, 200. In TCP, we can set up SYN flood, ICMP flood, and UDP floods of 200 per second. So if this is applied to the interface, number of packets per second is inspected, and if it reaches the threshold that we have set in this DOS protection profile, it's going to deny the traffic. If it's going to be within the threshold, if it's a normal traffic, it's going to allow them. All right. Following that, as we saw, it takes if it's an IPsec traffic. If it's an IPsec bounded traffic, it's going to decapsulate the IPsec header and takes for the original IP header, and then takes the ingress interface and DOS protection profile of that again, and also does the IP integrity check again. It processes the traffic further. So then comes the destination NAT and routing. So over here, let's say a firewall, it's having an outside interface of IP. Let's say it's IP1, and we have a server in here. It has IP.2. I'm just referencing it to be this way so that it's easier. So when this is accessing the firewall's outside interface IP, and if the destination NAT is being configured, this IP will be NATed to an internal IP of the server that this server outside is accessing. So when this happens, we will be configuring this NAT based upon the interface that it hits. So the original packet will be from outside towards this port number 2. And let's say this is port number 3. And when we do that, the traffic or the routing or the next hop we will be configuring would be this interface, not this interface, because the actual traffic or the IP that he is accessing or the outsider is accessing is this one, but that's going to get translated to 10.1.1.1, which is of this port. So whenever there is a destination NAT available or configured for a specific traffic, it's going to be inspected first, and then we'll have to check the routing, because the egress interface changes from 2 to 3 in this case, and so as the routing would change on which interface the traffic should be routed to, isn't it? So for that reason, the LNAT will be inspected first, and then the routing decision would be made. Okay. So ingress stage is done. Stateful inspection. So over here, it's going to the main agenda here is going to be whether we have a session already in place for the traffic, or we're going to form a new session out of the box because the session is not available already. Okay. So request you to get muted so that everyone will hear clearly.
There is some external disturbance that is there.
Yeah, I see someone.
Someone can go on mute if not.
You can mute them.
Give me 1 second, guys.
Too much, sir. Too much crowded.
I guess
To all,
Navin, you can mute them. Mute your. Navin, can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
You can mute them. Mute that person.
Okay, let me check 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the agenda or the purpose of the stateful inspection stage or phase is to look at the policy and form a session if the session is not new, and then identify if there is anything specific to QoS or user authentication or any of them are configured, and then make them accountable as well onto the flow. All right. So how does it do that? So let's say what all information we might have in this case. We have about source IP address and the destination IP it can access. The traffic is going to reach or intended to reach, source port, destination port. All right. And source interface and destination interface. Okay. So how we identify the destination interface? We accounted for a destination NAT policy if applicable, and if it is not, or if it is applicable, based on that we do the routing decision, isn't it? So with that we identified the destination interface. With all this information, we'll go on to check the policy. This defined, or if there is any policy in case defined for this flow, we'll be checking them. Before that, we'll be seeing if there is any session already in place for this flow. That's in the session table. So if the session table matches specific flow already, this source IP, destination IP for this set of ports and this set of interfaces, it's not going to do few of them in here where it won't do policy lookup, it won't do session tracking, and it goes directly to traffic shaping in here. So these two steps will be skipped because the session is already available in the session table where it identified the session with respect to these parameters already available. So it's not going to inspect or it's not going to look up the policy in the session tracking. Let's say if this information doesn't match the session table that's already available, it's going to go back and form a session first, and then do a policy lookup. I'm sorry, it's a policy lookup first, and then goes on to form a session. So it does a policy lookup based on those 7 parameters I told you. And if it's allowed on the policy, it goes on to look up and form a session. So with respect to these 7 parameters, we are missing something in here. So what are we missing in here? We're missing the application that user might be trying to access. So that application is not identified yet. So in this case, how does the policy lookup happen? So the policy lookup will happen with application defined as any, and see if there is a policy matching these 7 parameters. And then it forms a session. And after it forms a session, it goes on to check if there is anything with respect to QoS available on the firewall configured for this flow. And if there is any AD integrated with the firewall, and if there is any authentication being configured on the firewall itself. And if the traffic is the SSL bound traffic, so that it has to get the 40 VPN involved, all those stuffs will be checked in here. So we will be going through all of them in detail when we discuss them as a separate topic. But for now, just with this phase, just identify or know that the policy lookup will happen and the session tracking will happen if the session is not available already on the session table of the firewall. All right. Coming on to UTM feature. Over here, most of the traffic is identified or handled by IPS engine, where before even entering the UTM feature, the first thing it will do is it will see if the traffic is SSL or SSH. Okay. If these two are the traffic that the firewall has identified, this traffic will be encrypted. As you know, SSL and SSH are encrypted traffic. So if it will check if the decryption policy is available to decrypt this flow or SSH or SSL. If so, it will decrypt the traffic and then analyze the IPS and the UTM features. If not, it just directly passes on the traffic to UTM port. Okay. So when the traffic is injected to the IPS engine, it first tries to identify the application with flow-based application and the antivirus using flow-based approach, and then the proxy-based inspection if applicable. So let me take a pause to explain you on what a flow-based inspection and a policy-based inspection is actually. So the flow-based inspection is the normal way the firewall actually handles traffic, unless a policy-based inspection is actually being enabled as an option. Okay. So in flow-based inspection, what it does is it injects the traffic to IPS engine, and it identifies the application using the signatures available on the FortiCloud. FortiCloud will have well-known signatures for each application that it identifies to be a valid application. So through that signatures, it identifies that traffic coming in is of application ABC or G. So for instance, Facebook or Instagram or whatever social media pages that you might be aware of. It identifies based upon its signatures that it has built in on its FortiCloud manager, which is available in the public cloud. So similarly, after identifying the application, after getting the user into the application, only then he would download or he would try to access something or click a link or download a file or so on and so forth. So that is a very reason why we have, after application identification, application control, we have antivirus identification or antivirus inspection happening on the UTM. So there is no point in antivirus being happening before the application control, because only after the application is accessed or URL is accessed, you will try to access something and get into some trouble, isn't it? So for that reason, we will then inspect the antivirus profile that we have on the security policy. If we do have the profile configured on the security policy, it will be inspected. and then policy inspection. So I didn't yet explain you what a flow-based or a policy-based is. So flow-based is something that a firewall injects into the IPS engine, and it directly checks the signatures and then identifies the application and sends the traffic outside to the next phase. Wherein the policy-based inspection is something that it caches the traffic, pattern of the traffic, and it doesn't look at the signatures available within the firewall. Rather, it will send the traffic to the cloud and inspect each and every bits and pieces of the pattern that the traffic has. And only after inspecting everything, only then it would send the traffic out. Until then, the traffic will be black holed onto the firewall itself. So I know you are asking that the process of policy-based inspection is going to be time consuming. Yes, it will be. There are certain scenarios where you will be using this one. There are certain scenarios where you'll be using flow-based. That's why we have to inspection policies or inspection methods. We have to use them wisely wherever, whichever point we need to use them. So in case of flow-based, you have a use case where you have about thousands of users coming in with you're running a business page or something like that, and per second you have somewhere around 1,000 to 5,000 users accessing that URL, and the only thing you will consider for the user, from the user's perspective, is to be the page responsiveness, isn't it? So the page should be responsive enough for handling much amount of traffic, huge amount of traffic. So, and in that scenario, going ahead to use policy-based inspection is not a wise idea, because that's going to delay your process, and eventually the user's experience would be very slow in accessing the URL, and he will end up, if you are a telemarketing, or if you are a Flipkart user, and if Flipkart does this for policy-based inspection, he will experience very slow responsiveness, and he will move on to his competitor, maybe eBay or anyone who whose response is much more faster than the URL that he's actually trying to access. So there are certain scenarios where you need to use flow-based and policy-based. So policy-based inspection, as it seems that it is more secure, but it is slow. You use this inside an intranet, inside a company where you have traffic going and coming in between two business critical applications or servers. So those specific traffic flows can handle policy-based inspection, and if they don't consider speed as a problem, they can very well use policy-based inspection, considering only the security. Okay. Any questions so far?
What difference of speed in millisecond?
It is not that accurate. We could comment on, but as you might, it seems that the inspection happens within the firewall in case of flow-based. In this proxy inspection, it basically tries to inspect each and everything that the firewall flow has, and if there is a reason for going to the FortiCloud and then getting the data, latest data, and then inspecting the whole traffic, and then giving it back to the next phase, the stage.
So
it's going to take
I
some
think
time.
it's based on traffic.
I'm sorry, can you come again?
I'm saying it's based on traffic. If you're using more traffic, scanning.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. I was explaining you about the example where if the number of connections per second. Yeah. Does anyone stop me?
Go ahead, please.
I have a question.
Yes.
If this is done, can I ask my question?
Yeah, but probably after I complete my egress stage, I think it's going to be pretty much similar to ingress. It's going to be a reverse of it. Once I'm done with this, I'll be open for 5 minutes session, 5 minutes of your questions, and we can get on to the lab.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are in egress check here, where again, it checks if there is an IPsec enabled traffic that we are looking at. If it is so, in this stage, if you remember, we have encapsulated the IPsec encapsulated packet, and we're going to re-encapsulate that in this case. If it is an IPsec enable, or else it skips this and then goes on to check source NAT in this case, in here. So the DNAT in here is checked because it has to do some routing decisions based on that. So over here is where it checks and implements the source NAT. And then it checks what's the egress interfaces with the one identified on this ingress stage at the end, and then it routes the traffic outside. All right. So first and last is pretty much the same for any layer 3 device for the matter, apart from this DOS and IPsec decapsulation that's happening here. The main agenda or main part that you have to look at is the stateful inspection phase and UTM phase. Okay. All right. So I have planned a small lab here. People can ask your questions if you have any. Meantime, I'll just check if my lab is ready to be used.
So here, I have a question where you said the policies which are there are flow-based or policy-based inspection.
Yeah.
So what I have seen in FORTIGATE is like flow-based and proxy-based we can select. So is this proxy-based similar to the policy-based inspection that you were explaining?
Okay, I was all this while explaining the proxy-based. Did I say policy-based?
Yeah, you said policy-based
No,
inspection.
it is actually proxy-based. I'm not sure why I used policy-based, but I was actually meaning proxy inspection in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Flow-based and policy-based inspection.
That's
Yes.
what. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Thank you.
When a session is
okay, sorry. What's the default? The default for FORTIGATE is that the
flow-based. Yeah, default is flow-based. Yeah.
Okay.
You will have an option.
Yeah, we use proxy-based most of the time for troubleshooting, right? Otherwise, it's like resource-based because it will consume your resource.
Yeah, it will be consuming resources, and it's going to take much time as well. And it is used only in business critical scenarios where you are concerned about security more than speed. Or resources. Yeah. So if you are using proxy inspection, you are supposed to use a higher end firewall in FORTIGATE. You'll not be, it's not ideal to use a basic FORTIGATE firewall and enabling proxy inspection throughout your interfaces and overloading your device. So it's about a design plan that you choose where to use flow based and where to use proxy based.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is because in my work last time, I think we had some issue setting up in FORTIGATE. Then there's a policy, it didn't work. So FORTIGATE was advising us to use proxy because they want us to do, we're doing a debugging, and the FORTIGATE technician told us to use the proxy based during debugging. And it's very slow.
Okay. Yeah, it will be. Yeah, as I said, the resource usage when you compare flow-based and proxy-based is going to be having a huge difference, and that also goes hand in hand with how much of the traffic that the specific flow or those two interfaces are handling per second. So if it's going to handle more traffic, and if you have enabled proxy-based in that case, and it's going to be parallelly proportional, and it's going to overload a device.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So I think my firewall is up and running. I have wiped off my firewall's configuration, so it's a brand new firewall. So if you see the default username is admin for a brand new firewall, FortiGate firewall, and the password is empty. So you have to just press enter and it's going to ask you for a new password. So I'm entering a new password. I'm in. So let me try to quickly explain the connectivity in here. So port 1 is considered to be a management port for a FortiGate device. And I have connected this port 1 to, when I go on to edit, I've connected this to management cloud 0, which is nothing but my local PC where I'm accessing this lab from, this EVNG lab from. And this is done purposefully because I need to access this firewall on the browser, local browser itself, and not use another PC and having a 4 GB RAM utilized for that. So I know for the fact that port 1 is by default DHCP enabled, and it's going to use this management cloud 0 as its DHCP server and get an IP address for itself on port number 1. And let us verify that. So to check that, I'm going to say show system interfaces, port 1. So I'm in the interface mode, and I will have to make this a DHCP. So I'm going to get into the port.
Is port 1 is not DHCP enabled by default?
It should be. Maybe I haven't wiped this config off properly. So I will set it up again. So I'll say set
Unset the IP address and then set the.
No, IP should be dynamic in here. So IP should be from.
Maybe allow access.
IP should be dynamic. So I have to have IP dynamically assigned.
So you need to set allow access to the management.
Yeah, that is allowed already. So if you see HTTPS and SSH is allowed already.
But are you using the licensed or the evaluation? Because it may not work.
It is evaluation. Yeah.
Okay. But evaluation is most of the time works HTTP. It doesn't work at HTTPS.
Unset the IP first, like maybe that would work.
DHCP.
No, I should have a command that says how to set up a dynamic DHCP in here. Or let me try to wipe off the config and start over the firewall again and configure the other stuff. FortiGate is going to come up pretty quickly. So I am going to configure the Windows machine with an IP. I think I have already done that. 10.1.1.1 and 10.1.1.10 should be the IP on the firewall on port number 2. Okay, the switch is going to be on the default VLAN 1 for both the interfaces. Let me just wait for this to spin up.
What version are we using here in the firewall?
FortiGate, it should have. Let me just check. Seven.
Maybe I think this is a port manager. FMG is the name of the.
Oh, is it so? Give me 1 second. Okay, it says FMG. So let me just try to change that. Maybe by default it chooses this. Would be good now. Okay. So if I check now, I have got an IP. So as I said, IP should be of the same subnet where I have launched my UENZ, 772.16.24.154. So only thing I am left with is to allow them access. So let me just check if it's allowed by default. So when I say show system interface port number 1, and I have ping HTTPS and SSH, so I should be good to access this on the browser right now. So I'm sorry to 16.154.
Master, you need to use 443, not 80.
I think this should be okay. One thing here is only after you end your command setup will the configuration be saved here. So I was having some issues accessing this lab FortiGate firewall specifically through HTTPS. It does only work if HTTP is done and it gets redirected to the HTTPS. So after I click on end, it started working immediately because it took the command HTTP allow access for. So you have to come out of your configuration terminal wherever you're configuring it, like commenting end, so that your config is getting saved. So unlike your PALOALTO firewall, there is no concept of committing config here. So I'm logging into the firewall. I'm just skipping the initial setup. And depending on which version you are going to use, it's going to give you a new update if there is anything with respect to that version. I'm going to skip that and say okay. And here goes the dashboard where you have some general information about the firewall. So it's upfront saying that it is a VM and what is the allocated RAM and CPU for this and what licenses are active. And currently nothing is active. We don't have a licensed version. So here goes the system information, the serial number, the firmware, all the specific information of the firewall. And who has logged in currently and what is the role of the user. So give me 1 second, guys. Okay. So let's click on to configure the lab that we have for the agenda. So here, if you go on to system, you will get to configure your administrators and admin profiles. So what this does is here you can configure the administrators, the username and password for the person who is going to use this credential or the account. So it's pretty simple, straightforward when you're doing it locally. So you choose local user and I say monitor admin because I'm going to give him a read access. I'm going to give him a password. So here I'll be choosing profile for him. So I'll say prof_admin and click OK. So now that administrator is created and I've closed the profile _admin for as his profile name, I'm going to go to the profile that I've chosen and see what permissions have been given to him. And I'll say read for everything. And I'll say I'll not be asking him to view anything on VPN, security profile, and firewall. So let's click OK. And let me go back and log out the session and try to come back with so I'm logging in with the administrator I've created. And I shouldn't be able to edit anything with respect to network tab. So VPN tab is not visible for the person, but why is it allowing me to enter? Okay, let me go back to my system settings and see what I have done. Monitor admin, prof_admin, and admin profile.
So disable the firewall.
So Navin, I see that we don't, when we use this type of user, we can not edit settings, just see and have the return button, right?
That is correct. That's what I expect to happen. Let me see what network tab does.
Network is only 18, but not very any changes.
Network tab looks good. I'm not able to do anything here. Let's go back here. So I'll say read for everything. And
I think it's working because you cannot edit.
It's correct. I'm not able to click OK here. So
It's
just allowing me to edit, but I will not be able to save anything. So let me log out and come back to my super user admin.
Yeah, I think you have already done the access.
Yeah, that is correct. So that's about configuring an administrator. And when you have your backup and restore thing to do, you again come on to your administrator menu and go on to configuration, click on backup, and you have to choose local PC if you have to save your configuration or download it onto your local machine. If it's encryption, you will be entering a password and expect the user to enter a password when he downloads or uploads the config again. For now, I'm disabling encryption and I'm downloading it back again. So how to upload it back is to say restore and upload the config and have a password done if anything is being configured earlier, and click OK. All right. Okay. So let us do one final thing of configuring some interfaces.
During the actual classes, do you have any licensed version of the FORTIGATE that can be used for practice, or?
No, we will be using unlicensed version. Only thing we will be doing is when we go for PANAROMA on PALOALTO Firewall, I am having a plan of doing AWS deployed PANAROMA and PALOALTO for security profile and joining a firewall to PANAROMA to demonstrate that. I have a plan of doing that, so that will be done. But with respect to FORTIGATE and NSE4, we will be working with only unlicensed version, the VM that we are currently using.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay. So we'll go on to configure the interface. So the port number 1 has already been configured as it's a DHCP by default. we will want to configure port number 2 and 3. And as we know, on port number 2, we will be using DHCP, and port number 3 will have .10 as its IP address. Yeah, 2 should be .10 and 3 should be outside DHCP. So let me configure port number 3 first. So let's say it is outside and the role is WAN. And I'm not defining any bandwidth, so it doesn't matter. So I say DHCP. This option in here, retrieve default gateway from the server. This is something that is good to be enabled because in our scenario, what we'll do is we'll have a default route configured towards this cloud that we have. So when you configure default route, you have to provide your next hop, which in this case you are not aware of, or you might not be aware of if you are doing a DHCP, because the ISP is going to be someone outside of your organization is going to provide you the IP address, isn't it? So with that being said, this an option, if it's enabled, it's going to automatically pull the default gateway information for you wherever it's supposed to be used on a firewall. All right. Okay, I'll say ping alone is enabled for this interface, and that should be it. I will click OK. So port 3 is configured outside. I will go on to configure port number 2. This will be LAN and this will be inside. And this will be a manual IP. And that will be 10.1.1.10/24. And I will be allowing ping again for this one. And pretty much that's about it. Let's click on OK. So 2 things left for us to do is configure a static default route. So default route gateway address interface is going to be outside. So if I say gateway is dynamic, this is where that option comes in handy. It picks up the gateway automatically. Okay, so let's click OK here. So let's see the administrative distance default. Okay, we are almost done apart from configuring a policy. One difference that I see, in fact, something good that I see with FortiGate with respect to Palo Alto is that it has everything simplified. Let's say if you're configuring a policy, for the same policy, if you need to have a NAT, that's got to be enabled. You got to do it right there. You don't have a separate option for doing a NAT. So I say internet access, incoming interface will be inside and outgoing will be outside. And source, I keep it as any. I'm not going to define any source. I'll say all. Destination also, I'll say all. So you have an option to schedule it. I'm not going to do that. I will be using flow-based. That's what we discussed during our packet flow. And coming on to that, I'll be I'll use outgoing interface IP address. So it's going to use port number 3's IP address to get it NATed. So that's about it. I'm going to do OK. like it doesn't have anything here. So I believe I haven't chosen any service, or I haven't chosen anything in here for service. So that is the reason I wasn't able to click OK here. Okay, so now that the policy is enabled, I believe we are done configuring everything that's necessary for this PC to access internet. So let me try to ping 8.8 and I'm able to reach internet. And as you see, all this while the connectivity was not established, or right now we see internet access. So I should be able to go out to elsewhere in the internet cloud. Let me try to go to eBay. And it works just fine. So that's pretty much it. You have to configure your interfaces ready, along with the policies and routing, to establish your internet connectivity from the inside user, for the inside user to go out to internet. So with that said, I think we have covered most of the agenda for the day. In fact, everything. We will be having the classes getting started next week. Probably it's going to be a 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. session, IST. The rest of the details will be handled by the backend team. You can probably, give me 1 second, you can probably refer to the contact details that I'm sharing you on the screen for you to contact for admissions. You can probably take a screenshot of it or save the contact number that's on the screen. Either which ways would help. And probably I'm expecting most of the crowd, or in fact everyone, for the next week's session that's going to get started. So I'll open the forum for questions for next 10 to 15 minutes. You can shoot out any questions, technically, non-technically, anything that I might be able to answer, I will be happy to answer.
So this class cover NSE7?
This one is for NSE4.
So
Okay.
why it says NSE7 up to NS7. So
yeah,
do you have
NSE7,
another?
yes, it will be. The demo is focusing NSE4. NSE7 will not be handled by me. I will be handling NSE4 and PCNSE PANAROMA. And NSE7 obviously will be handled, but by a different trainer.
So when is that demo? The NS7 demo?
So there is no specific demo for NSE7 itself. It's going to be the same. And if you got to choose NSE7, it will be done by a different trainer, and you will be put onto a different batch. Whoever chooses NSE7, and NSE4 and PALOALTO will be together. If you are choosing NSE7, and after I complete NSE4 and NSE7 gets completed there, PALOALTO will be happening together.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the list of firewall we are doing in this course of training? Can I have those? You said 5-in-1 for network engineers. So what are the 5 list of the firewall that we're training on?
Well, yes, I myself will be, I will be assigned to handle PALOALTO and FORTIGATE, as I said. Apart from that, we have checkpoint in FTD along with LTM 5 also will be handled. So it's going to be a one single program that you will be enrolling for. So I will be the trainer for these two, and for checkpoint and FTD, you will have other trainer assigned and FILTM as well.
So what is FILTM? Is it a firewall or load balancing?
It's a load balancer.
Oh, okay, cool.
Quick question.
How long is the training?
Yes.
How long?
So modules, all the modules will be provided to a different trainer.
With respect, I mean, I can't comment on who will be exactly taking the other modules, but from my side, I will be handling NSE4 and PALOALTO. Obviously, apart from this, these two modules, others will be handled by different techniques.
So how
And
do I
what about
access
the-
the lab?
How
Or
long is this module? How long is this module? How long is PALOALTO? How long is FORTIGATE?
The time that I have planned for is 30 plus 30. So totally 2 months to 70 days in total. So 30 hours, I mean, not 30 days. So 30 hours plus 30 hours for FTD, FORTIGATE and PALOALTO. So it might go up to 70 days instead of 60. So depending on how long it takes for me to complete a specific topic, if it drags for some time, I'll have to stretch and complete them. So I have a buffer of 10 hours. So probably 60 to 70 hours is my plan.
Are we going to have the what's it called? Are we going to have the lab set up for us?
Obviously, yes.
We're going to have the overfile and GNS3 on our system.
Yeah, not on your system. You will be accessing our lab, which we will be providing you. So more or less, the lab you will be accessing would look something like this.
So you don't have like home lab setup option?
Sorry, sir, come again?
Do you have a home lab setup option? The home lab?
Yeah, as I said, you will be accessing our shared lab server, like I am doing right now. I'm on an RDP machine and I'm accessing the lab through this. Similarly, you will also be accessing an RDP console, and from there you will be given an IP address to access DNG, like I'm doing right now. And all these lab setup will be done by the backend team. The necessary person would be contacting you for setting up the lab for you. So that will be after your enrollment session.
The reason I'm asking is, I'm attending another class. They have two options, either remote lab or home lab. So in this class, do you have that option?
Home lab obviously should have to be set up from your side, but it's not. Home lab is going to be sufficient if you're using one firewall or so. I'm not sure how many of you guys would have about more than 16 GB of RAM on your laptop, but if you're going to use more than 2 firewalls and few routers and Windows Server and so on and so forth, you got to have a high-end server for you to set up your home lab, or else using our lab would be sufficient or ideal thing to do, because over here, if you see, there are about resources. If you power on everything, it goes up to 40 GB of RAM in total. So this takes up 2 GB, and one Windows machine takes up 4. Every FortiGate takes up 4 GB of RAM. So ideally, using our lab would be a better way to do. But it's up to you. If you're practicing most of the stuff with one FortiGate firewall, your home lab would be sufficient, but otherwise using our lab would be easier for you.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Sometimes we are facing issue of unable to FortiGate errors in the firewall. So how can I fix this issue?
I didn't get your question. Sorry.
Sometimes we are facing the issue in firewall to see the error is unable to connect your FortiGate server dashboard. So how can I fix this issue?
So your firewall is saying you're not able to connect to FortiGate center.
No, it's unable to FortiGate server.
So FortiGate server.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, as I said, FortiGate is something that you have to access through internet. So your firewall should have internet connectivity for it to access, and also for you to use that FortiGate feature, you have to be licensed, I believe. So all those things have to be taken care. Then yeah, it should work. The main reason that it says that you are not able to access is because you don't have internet connectivity through the interface with which you are trying to access that server, FortiGate server.
Okay.
I'll be open for another 5 minutes for your questions. And then we can possibly meet next week, starting off with the FortiGate batch, and following the FortiGate, we'll be continuing with the PALOALTO.
So usually we have classes on every Saturday and Sunday, right?
That's correct.
So maximum we'll get 8 classes a month.
Yes, 8 classes a month, but if you consider, I would calculate the classes based on how many hours we complete a month. So
Okay,
if you
so
consider that way,
typically
it would be 4 hours a week and 16 hours a month. So probably 8 weeks for 7 to 8 weeks for FortiGate, and the same amount of time for PALOALTO.
All right.
7 weeks would be sufficient, because if I consider handling 1 hour session, I will be able to complete one topic, and if I am not having enough time to complete the second topic, I would be skipping that topic to the next day. But having a 2-hour session together, I will be able to complete somewhere about 4 topics in a day, and the 4 topics on the other day. So having a collective session would help me cover more topics in a single day. So I believe it won't take me 25 hours or more to cover FortiGate, and in the similar way PALOALTO also can be covered. Yes.
What in PALOALTO you'll be covering? Is it only PCNSA?
No, it's PCNSE for PALOALTO. You will be shared with the course agenda along with FortiGate and PALOALTO, like I have here. So this is the FortiGate course agenda. So you will have this shared on your by our backend team. Once this enrollment and stuff is complete, you will be shared with all this information along with the lab. You can go through them and ask for any questions if you do.
So I have already enrolled. So whom should I contact to get access to lab setup?
You should have received an email, or probably I'm sharing my screen displaying this information with respect to any doubts or clarifications you have. Probably you can contact this number. We will be able to guide you or patch you to the right person.
All right, thank you.
Yes, you can take a screenshot or note down this number and or this WhatsApp link. Either way, you can contact the team. Yeah.
Okay. Fine. So is there any prerequisite for someone like me who is currently out of touch that I need to brush up to the next class?
I'm sorry, could you come again?
Is there any prerequisite that you would suggest for someone like me to brush up before the next class?
Not necessarily, because you're not going to handle anything out of normal networking stuff. So if you're good with CCNA, that should be pretty much sufficient for you to follow up with the classes.
Okay.
Can you let me know what would be covered tomorrow? Like what is the agenda for tomorrow?
I believe it was communicated that we have only one demo session. That is for today. And we'll be directly starting our classes next Saturday.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
If it was 2 demo sessions, I must have done a 1 hour session today and 1 hour tomorrow. But I have done a collectively 2 hour session today itself, so that we can have an off on Sunday and come back on Saturday next week.
Okay.
So which firewall is most popular in Indian market? I believe it's PALOALTO.
Yes, PALOALTO, because of the cost and the service. But FORTIGATE is booming very fast, and we never know, it might take over PALOALTO at some point of time, because right now in recent times I see a lot of complaints based on the services that service or customer support that PALOALTO is providing over to that of FTD or FORTIGATE. So with any aspect, it might come over PALOALTO or overtake PALOALTO and become the leader in the market. But currently, yes, PALOALTO is leader in the market.
How about in UAE? Because I'll be looking for jobs in UAE actually. Is it the same case, or?
It's not about the country where you stay, but it's overall in
the service of the vendor.
Yeah. Overall market, I would say both are going hand in hand. It's about, I mean, if you see UAE, I have so many of my friends working over there, but they still don't trust cloud, and they're still going with legacy in-house data centers. They still don't. They still are not happy migrating to public clouds where they can give half of the authority to AWS or whichever cloud provider they're going for. So yeah, it depends on what they believe or what they trust. So in world market, if you ask me, it's both PALOALTO and FORTIGATE.
Okay.
All right, guys. Any further questions before I close off?
Yes, my question was, will I get a copy of the recording? I had to step away.
You will be receiving it on whichever channel you got to know about this, or through your email, because before entering this Zoom meeting, you must have entered your email information, I believe. So I believe through that you should have this recording given to you in a day. If not today, tomorrow, before end of the day, you should receive this. Tomorrow being Sunday, you can have a buffer up to Monday. So before Monday, Monday before lunch, you should have this recording on your email. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Have a good one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Hope to see all of the crowd today on next Saturday. Coming back for FORTIGATE and PALOALTO sessions then. Thank you.
Tomorrow there is a
Thanks
class
so much,
or not?
Navin. Good
No,
night.
Navin, tomorrow there is another class, or the same class will be repeated?
There is no session tomorrow. As I said, we are having one demo session this time, and we'll be straight away starting the classes next week.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.